Welcome back, guys. In our last video, we started our chapter book of Planes, Fire, and Rescue. We read chapters 1 and 2, and that ended with Dusty having engine trouble. So today we're going to read chapters 3 and 4. So let's see what happened with Dusty. Here we go. Chapter 3. As they approached the runway, Skipper guided Dusty in, and the two landed safely. They headed straight for Dottie's garage. Dottie, a forklift and Dottie's good friend and trusted mechanic, would be able to figure out what had gone wrong there. Sparky gave Dusty an oil change as Skipper waited nearby. "I don't know what it is. I wasn't doing anything different," Dusty said to Dottie carefully as Dottie carefully investigated his panel. "You know, pylons, turns, a vertical, like we do every day. I mean, I feel great." Dottie sighed and headed over to her work table. She sprayed water on an air filter and removed large metallic chunks from it. They landed in a petri dish. "I've got a love-hate relationship with you, Dusty," she said. "I love that you're my best customer, but hate what you're doing to yourself." As usual, Dusty thought Dottie was overreacting. He knew she was protective of him, but he felt fine. How could anything be wrong? Dottie placed the metallic chunks beneath a microscope, and an enlarged view of the metal appeared on a nearby monitor. She dropped liquid acid on them, and a red smoke appeared. Dottie sighed. She clearly was not happy with the results, but Dusty didn't notice. He was too busy thinking about his next big race. And hey, this Speed City Air Fest is just a few weeks away, and I think if I get a little more speed coming out of my turns, really work that radical G, I can definitely improve my time. Yeah, I'm feeling good about my next race." Dottie faced Dusty. "Well, no damage in the casting or compressor blades." "See, I told you, just a hiccup, that's all," Dusty said, and ready to move on. "But there is," before Dottie could continue, Chug barreled into the garage. Dusty, what happened? Are you okay, Dust?" Chug was worried about his friend, but Dusty quickly assured him that he was fine. He told Chug that Dottie had checked him out and found nothing. Frustrated, Dottie took a deep breath and blurted out the news. "Your induction gearbox is failing." The room fell silent. My gearbox?" "Your chip detector had a cluster of steel shavings in it. Flakes from the gears. That's what caused the trouble." Dusty didn't understand why Dottie seemed so gloomy. Couldn't she just order another gearbox and replace it? She would be able to fix him up right away. Dottie gazed at Dusty. "What?" Dusty pressed her for an answer. "Your gearbox is out of production," Dottie said. She couldn't even remember the last time she had seen one. It had been discontinued a long time ago. "But Dottie, come on, can't you just build Dust a new one?" Chug asked hopefully. "No, it's too complex. It has to be factory," Dottie answered. Dusty couldn't believe what he was hearing. How could he be unfixable? "From now on, you have to back off your torque," Dottie told him. "Keep it under 80%. "What? 80%? Dottie, I've got to crank it to 140. I need that to race." Dottie stared at Dusty sternly. "If you push yourself into the red, your gearbox will fail." Dusty didn't want to hear this. "But no, Dottie. And then your engine will seize." Dusty wondered if maybe the test was wrong. He had a race coming up. He couldn't deal with this. "You'll crash," Dottie repeated it to make sure Dusty was listening. "You push yourself into the red, you crash." Dottie installed a warning light on Dusty's panel. "If the light goes on, you'll need to pull power. Slow down." "But Dottie, you're saying I can't race anymore?" Dusty was heartbroken. I'm so sorry." Chug, Sparky, and Skipper were at a loss for words, and a grim silence hung over the garage. Chapter 4. Later that night, the neon sign in front of Honker's Sports Bar buzzed and flickered to life as darkness fell over Propwash Junction. A typical crowd packed the room. Honky-tonk music played and cars and trucks danced and talked and laughed. Everyone was drinking cans of oil and having a great time, except Dusty. Then Chug and Sparky showed up, full of excitement. They had gotten off the radio with someone they knew in Grand Flaps. "He's got a gearbox?" Dusty asked impatiently. Chug and Sparky explained that their friend didn't have a gearbox, but he did know someone who had 21 service hangers. That guy said he'd check his inventory and put the word out to try to find Dusty a gearbox. "That sounds like a start," Sparky said enthusiastically. "'Cause if the gearbox is out there, we'll find it for you, buddy," Chug added. Dusty smiled. Even though he felt broken, it sure was nice to have such great friends. Just then, Longbottom rolled up. Leadbottom was an old biplane that had been Dusty's boss when Dusty had worked as a crop duster. "And hey, if you don't, it's all right because the answer is yes." Dusty looked at Longbottom confused. "Yes, of course you can have your old job back. Don't even have to bother asking. That's the kind of guy I am," the senior crop duster said proudly. "Longbottom," Skipper said, rolling forward, trying to make him stop talking. But there seemed to be no stopping Longbottom. "Of course, I'll have to start you back at minimum wage, and you've lost all your vacation time and other various benefits, but," Longbottom continued. "Longbottom, please, I'm sure Dusty appreciates the offer, but now's not the best." Longbottom was not picking up on Skipper's hints. "Come on, Skipper. I could get this old sprayer back from that Germany place, have it cleaned up and bolted back on him in no time." Leadbottom made obnoxiously loud drilling noises as he pretended to bolt Dusty's old sprayer back on. Finally, Skipper offered to buy Longbottom a can of oil just to get rid of him. "I'm telling you, Skip, it's the truth. Other than me, Dusty is the best duster I've ever known." "And I'm telling you that Dusty don't crop dust no more," Chug said angrily. "That's right, no more," Sparky chimed in. "He's a racer," said Chug. "A racer!" "He's going to be back to racing in no time," added Chug. "In no time. Right, Dusty? Right, Dust?" Chug and Sparky looked over, but Dusty was gone. They hadn't noticed, but while Longbottom was going on and on about Dusty working as a crop duster again, Dusty had snuck out of the bar. Dusty wanted to be alone. He couldn't even think about getting back into crop dusting. Alone and sad, he went for a solo night flight, soaring high over Propwash Junction. He just couldn't believe what had happened. How was it that just a few short hours ago, he'd been flying with Skipper and everything was okay? Things had been going well for him. Now his whole world had shifted. How had it fallen apart so quickly? Dusty stared at his torque gauge as he flew faster and faster. He was angry. He was a racer, and racers needed speed. They needed to push their engines to race, and if Dusty couldn't race, what would he do? It was all he ever wanted to do with his life. With his eyes fixed on his gauge, Dusty ascended higher into the air, picking up speed. He watched as the needle climbed toward the yellow zone. He continued flying faster and faster, pushing his engine so hard that the ground beneath him began to blur. Dusty locked his eyes on his torque gauge, mesmerized, as the needle crept closer and closer to where the yellow met the red. The needle was about a hair's width from the red line when, flash, 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 the red warning light came on. Dusty slowed down and brought the needle back to the yellow zone, and the light stopped flashing. But then he noticed another flashing red light. It wasn't his warning light. Where was it coming from? Dusty looked up and saw that the wire suspension tower was flashing its light, and it was right in front of him. He tried to dodge it, but his wing clipped the top of the tower. Ah! The tower light popped and sparks rained down like fireworks against the night sky. Dusty was unable to gain control. He breathed heavily as he spiraled toward the ground. He tried to adjust himself, but he continued to plummet toward the earth until, crash! He landed too far down the runway, and he was going fast. He careened into the taxiway, but couldn't stop. He was headed straight toward the Fill and Fly. Dusty swerved this way and that, but couldn't slow down. Finally, he slammed right into one of the station's support beams and rolled back slowly, coming to a stop. Phew, he was safe. Seconds later, he heard a sickening creak coming from the support beam. Crash! The beam collapsed. Then the gas station's overhang dropped onto the gas pump. Kaboom! The pump exploded and a fire erupted. Dusty watched helplessly as the Fill and Fly lit up like the 4th of July, engulfed in flames. Fire! Fire! Dusty yelled as loudly as he could. Ooh. That's the end of chapter 4 for today, guys. Come back for the next video and we will read chapters 5 and 6. See you later.